Welcome everyone to the 2023 March edition of Copenhagen React. Got some technical difficulties. I guess we sorted it out. So first of all, we're joining here from a banking circle today. I happen to work with banking circle, which so I can just say a few words. I can say a few words about what we're doing. Basically, it's processing payments, cross-border payments, which, I don't know. I've been in Denmark for quite a while now. When I came in Denmark, my parents had to send me money because I didn't have all the privileges with SU and all that. So a transfer would take around 5 days and it would cost around €50. And the mission of our mission is to make a transfer almost instant, taking 5 seconds and costing 50 cents. It's at least what we're aiming for. Anyhow, it's super nice to see so many people showing up today. And without further ado, I'm just going to say a few words about the sweet spot over there where you can find some candy in case you, like this guy gets a bit boring. There's also some soda and beverages over there in the back. The toilet is as you leave outside to the right, and probably most of you have noticed it by now. But that's about it. Welcome. I'll just leave it for William to take it over.
Yes. I also work in banking circle. I've been here 1 year. And today I'm gonna talk a little bit about like our journey from having a great React app and migrating a product over to or a platform over to NX, and the decisions we made and the learnings we had and challenges and etc. Yeah. Okay. So the product we have is called Odin. It's an internal operational platform for all operational UI. So it's like one-stop shop for all the various business departments that we have internally. So they can have like various products within this platform. So you see an example here. So all of these drop-downs are like own small apps as such, which belong to various departments and their needs. So that's what this talk is going to be about, like having this platform and then migrating over to a monorepo with NX. Okay. Yes. But if we wind a little bit back, this product is not that old as such, luckily. And if we go back to 2020 and probably some years before that, when you look up like you want to build a React application, and they still do today, they recommend like go with Great React app. That is the most normal and usual way of building it. But there are other like people in the environment that question this, and I think that's also fine. So what we have here is like the initial start of this Odin platform back in 2020, and there's another name there. I don't know if you can see it. Jakob down there is the next presenter. So yeah. But so this started this project, and it was called Clearing UI at that time. And if we go then and fast forward 2 years, where you like have a fresh project, and then you can just code away features. Business wants features, and they want it now right away. So you just code and code and code, and it's like then the business comes and says, we want this to be our like real one-stop shop platform, and you need to support maybe 10 more undefined modules within the platform. So this was at that time. I don't know if you can see it, but maybe the screen is a little bit unclear. I can tell a little bit about it. So what we have here is like a somewhat fat Create React app that was never like meant to scale in this way. And we had like a folder called components where every components were like just pushed in, and there were atomic design like folders, and nothing was like sorted out to various domains and products. So we thought that we should have a look at it and take a step back and figure out what we can do to fix this. That was about half a year ago. So this was in summer, last summer. So what we have in the backend is that we have some APIs, so some various microservices, and then in the front end we had somewhat monolith front end. And if you look at this architectural evolution, it goes something like this. I don't know if the years on this are quite correct, but there's an example. And a monolith is fine to start, not necessarily a bad thing. It means that you probably have a successful product, and but if you look at it, it's also like it can become challenging, because what you hope for is like everything is modularized and dependencies and etc. are like correct, but in reality, when you dig deeper into the code, it's they're all over the dependencies and etc. So that gave us some problems, because all these different apps that we have, they have like different teams, different front-enders, different back-enders, and they want to have their own release schedule. So we had like, it felt like we were in a big hurdle every time we needed to do a release, and it was messy, and we were also slow at developing features now, because wasn't that great setup, because it wasn't built for scale either. So, but we can look at it. At least we had like one monolith, and not like a distributed monolith, which is even worse when you have that. But today we are more like in the modular monolith actually, and trying to moving this way a little bit. But I'll come more into that. So if you look back at this drawing again, which is now like taking it from what architecture used to be or should be in 2020. Here we can see that you have some APIs, but you're also starting to have like some micro front ends in the front end, and having thin app shells. So we thought, okay, we're gonna start this. This is gonna be like a journey. It will not take a weekend. It's something that will require a few pull requests at least to get it done. And the most important part here is also like you need to get buy-in. So if you ever should try something like this, you need to get buy-in from the business, because they will come and they will demand the features and whatnot all the time. So we made an ADR, architectural decision records, and I can highly recommend that if you're not using it today, but just so you have something to look back on, like what were the constraints and etc. So we did look at the tools out there to do like stuff like this, and we found like NX and monorepo, NX and turborepo, sorry, and did a quick spike. Like I think we used little over a week, where we just said, okay, test this out and like see how can we convert our existing code base into something like this. And then we yeah, as you see here, the decision fell on NX because it was a lot more mature and yeah, it had a lot more features that we also wanted it to have. And Turbo did not have that many what you call it contributors actually at that time at least. So if you look at how does it look like with monorepo and polyrepo, most of like enterprise apps, they are probably here somewhere like we were. And today we are more like moving up into the second corner there with other great players. So then the question starts like we have decided we're gonna go with this technology, but how are we gonna start with this migration? Should we do a new new repo, start there, and then like go to the basement and code for a few months and come back and say, hey, we have something, and a big bang, everything is done. Like that will be a probably easier than migrating. I don't know, but at least uh, we decided that we have some users like on our platform today, and we need someone to test our stuff. So we need to break this migration down to small pieces and deliver them like in small pieces. And the first thing we started with was, of course, just okay, we're gonna branch off and try to do something and get NX started. And yeah, but it's like we have stuff in production, we have it running, there are users and etc. So we need also to be careful. And it is not easy. Like, how do you start eating or slicing up an elephant? You need to start like in small places, but it's like the elephant is running, so we need to figure this out. So what we actually did to start was just covered everything to NX, like remove everything that was called create React app actually, but just have NX do exactly the same. So we moved all of the existing code except for like the React, create React like scripts and everything that's around. So we moved everything into a legacy folder, and then we said, okay, let's get this legacy folder up and running the same way as it did before. So we changed the entire like build tool chain to NX. And this was actually like not that hard in my opinion. Like it was fairly easy. And actually I know that NX has some generators so you can actually convert a create React app directly over to NX, but our product was like a few years ahead and it was not that really standard anyway. So for example, they were using Vite and etc. But that's what we did actually, just get it up and running, and then we had a small code freeze because people were still developing like in the various teams, so they were still like delivering features and we had moved everything into a legacy folder. So Git luckily knows that okay, this folder, this files are still the same, so it should not be a problem. But then someone has deleted some files and you are trying to move them, so you get merge conflicts when you do this, without a doubt. But my advice is that you can at least you need to like advise on a code freeze. I can't really remember how long it was, but I think it was maybe 2 weeks or something, or 1 week or something like that. Actually, for the last part. So yeah. And when you do that, you need to like, or you will have like this Frankenstein architecture while you're migrating. Because you have something that's legacy that will become a new setup and etc. etc. So you just need to live with something is old and something is like it's not that pretty and nice to have along the way, but it was needed. And then I would say talk about NX. Like NX has this thing called project graph, which is extremely valuable when you're migrating like this, because you can use it to understand like how the dependencies are. So it creates a graph. I can show it later, but it creates a graph of the entire project, and then you can dig into how are the dependencies connected. And to a start, this was how our project looked. So we had one box with owner legacy, and then NX also creates one end-to-end project for you. Before we had it like mixed in the old and legacy, as I remember. So it was pretty easy, but the mission was now get this box breaking down. So we want like 80 to 90% of the logic in here. We want out, split it out. This should just be like a thin shell list. So next step we started was like figuring out what is the smallest step we can start working on this. So we started with something, a project that had low to no activity in it, so we could start there. So we started just taking out and generating like React libs with NX. So it's fairly basic React library as such, or module. And then we started on taking what is shared across the application. Take that out. But we still had like everything in the open legacy and the shell. So getting one feature out and trying to get it to work with routes and etc. in the other shell. And you can say that how you're gonna split this logic is like often you think about where you're gonna split it, like how small should your stuff be, and like micro front end, it could be a button, it can also be like an app, it doesn't matter. But a good idea is just to look at the routes. So if the routes make like switch, then it's probably a domain in itself, and a good idea to have it separated out like a main route. So what we also get a lot, or got a lot, was circular dependencies. Because everything, as shown before, like in a monolith box, everything is tightly coupled together. And we need to get it loosely coupled, we need to cut these dependencies. Now this is just a picture that shows an example of like circular dependencies, but NX does not allow circular dependencies. So you can fine serve an application without everything breaking, but when you try to build it, you get build time errors. Again, the NX project graph that they have to visualize the architecture, etc., is extremely useful here, because you can see exactly an arrow is pointing up. You press on the arrow, you see a file list that comes out that says this and this file has some issues. And then you just need to solve them, right? So fast forward to today. I don't know if you can see the screen actually, but yeah, we have today various app shells. We also have an Odin app shell now, which is right our Odin shell, and then everything is split out to libs. The legacy folder is removed and it's out. And so if you look at it through the NX project graph, the bigger picture today, it looks like this. So going from having one box, we have like one Odin box, where you have one end-to-end project, and then you have like threads down to entry points of all the domains. And as you can see, we have something that is shared also. So all of these domains share some of these things like authentication and yeah, shared assets, shared translations, localizations, etc. But if you drill down into one of these boxes on top, it looks like this. So it's like more dependencies and etc. But as you can see here, what we have done is actually that we have the Odin shell, the main shell, and then we have like one small shell for Cepos, which is actually using the same thing that this shell use. So it looks like when we spin it up, it looks exactly like the Odin shell we are in. And then we have this features, which is just like the entry point. It contains routes, almost only that, like a list of routes. So these features that are split out, they know nothing about each other. They are just like small standalone features. And then as we have this global shared, we also have like a domain shared, so features can share stuff anyway. And then we have Cepos shell end-to-end. So all of these shells have end-to-end projects in them. Yeah, I can go to this. I'll come back into why we have these shells and etc. How does that work? But another thing that NX also gives is like it helps you with the automation and updating dependencies, because they have some generators and then they create this migration script, so you can just fire it off and it like fixes all of the issues you actually have with Cypress and Jest and all of this build setup. So it's actually really neat, and we updated NX multiple times because they had a lot of like new stuff, new features coming, and we wanted to have them and be up on the latest of that stack. Otherwise, I don't know how many of you have worked in a monorepo setup, tried it, yeah. You will have a lot of files. And there is, I can recommend, like there are some extensions in VS Code, so you can just select what you want to see actually, if that's only relevant for you. And then NX has its own console extension where you can like run a lot of scripts across the entire repo. So what NX also has is that because of this project graph, they are capable of also to say what have you affected when you do something. So if you change one app, you can see that okay, in this sense, you only affected one app. So NX knows that you only need to rebuild this and not rebuild the entire repo, and everything is slow. But this NX affected is also something that we are using today with the pipeline. So we created new CI pipelines where we actually parallelized all the stages, and then we use NX affected in our CI. So we had pipelines that ran PRs for like 25, 35 minutes before. Now when we work on an area, do something, we're down to 10 minutes. So you like do not even need to switch task or something. So you just fire it away and yeah, fill your coffee and then you're back and it's done. And yeah, that's actually really nice. What we also did is create new CD pipelines because before we like, and we still do, we deploy one box, which is Odin, the main box, to production. But for the other domains, we actually deploy the shells now. So the shells can, if you do a change in, for example, Cepos in this case, and it gets merged in, then we do deploy to an environment where Cepos is the only thing that's on there. That way, they can decide themselves if they want to go to UAT also and test their things there. This is where we had really like a tough, rough time before, because you need to align all of the teams and say, okay, we're going to release now. Are you ready? People are like, ready? What are you talking about? No, and etc. And yeah. But as you can see, we created a base pipeline for this, which contains some code, and all of the other domains have actually only a few lines of code, 13 lines of code, because they extend on the base pipeline. So it's actually pretty nice. So here you can see an example of this CD for just the C+ environment. So it builds it, and then it just runs some unit test and end-to-end test, and then deploys it to do, and then there are some gatekeepers on the other environment, so you can push that there if you want. Another thing we also did actually in the start of this migration was to actually be able to deploy PRs, so we can, like Vercel does it. I think Vercel does it like that. You create a PR, and you can actually open it and see your changes in isolation, and that is like extremely nice, because when you like change something that affects all of the domains and etc. And someone has also, like, you create multiple pull requests and another one create a pull request, and suddenly you figure out nothing works, everything blinks, and it's like, was it because of my package update, or what was actually the issue? And so if we felt that, okay, we have some risky pull requests, we just deploy them out, see them and test them, and the business can test them before we merge them in. So some kind of shift left, and that's actually pretty helpful when doing a migration like this. Another thing I will highlight is the generators from NX. If you're using it or tried it, they're actually pretty nice, and they're fine to a start, but they are a little bit basic. So we have like made our own generators on top of that. So today, if we want to have a new domain, the business comes there, we want a new domain and we want a feature and etc. We can have it up and running in 10 minutes, and then they can focus on building the feature, the business value actually, in that sense. So that's pretty sweet. And as I mentioned before, because of this split in the architecture and the pipelines and etc., we can just keep on adding modules, and everything will like perform the same way as such, at least a few months from now. It has been a fun and great learning experience, and I would definitely do it again if I got the chance, I would say. But it has been challenging because you're delivering features, fixing bugs, and migrating at the same time, bit by bit. We had two code freezes. The first one where we changed to create React app with NX, so we just had that. And then we had the last one where we had all the shells and a new shell. And that was a tough one to get by, and required a lot of testing and regression testing and etc. Circular dependencies can also be a pain. And then aligning the domains, because all of the business domains have various goals and things they need to do, and their prioritization, and so you will have some domains and aligning them and etc. because your architecture is like evolving all the time. You get more knowledge and you figure out some of these things, and then they also need to like prioritize getting that up and running and working. So we have like a streamlined architecture all over. We had some challenging with this localization. We have this I18N scanner, so when we add some keys, it extracts them out, and that's fine. But when you have multiple shells and you need to sync them and etc., so it is the same experience. We had a Mirage mock server to mock APIs, and there we actually got some issues with Cypress actually, because NX has this index file. So we actually, when you write tests and etc., you point to an index file that actually points out to more than it should, and that can give some issues. But we have fixed that by creating API project for all the domains. So all the data is handled there. When we started, we also we had a great reactor with Read, and NX did not have support for that at the time, but they have now. We haven't tried it. I think we are waiting a little bit to see if Ares pack is gonna be good. Yeah, and then I don't know if you use Sonar Cloud, but they do not support monorepo, or they do support monorepo, but it's a different setup. So every time you add a project, you need to add a new project in Sonar Cloud. You get a new key and etc. And we didn't want to do that, so we made some scripts that collects all of them into one. So some special custom tooling there also. Yeah, and there's probably more that I haven't thought about. But now the plan is to publish the entry points, which is like connected to the domains. So we have like for Sabos, we have a version of that. And then in our main shell, we will have like versioning the domains, and then teams work locally on their own product. And they can see that when they go to their own domain, and then when they are happy, they publish and release a package. And then we can update it in the main shell. So actually, domains or teams are able to release independently now, like multiple times a day, hopefully. That's the plan. Yeah. Any questions before anything? Yeah, Paul?
You would have to do this all over again. Would you do it the same way?
Good question. Yeah, I was thinking, yeah, maybe. It depends. I think it's all about context, because all businesses have different context. But we were also thinking, like, to start, when we should start on this, we were thinking we're going to use module federation. I don't know if you use that, but we were thinking that was the obvious way to start doing it. But that requires you to have teams and etc. that can handle pipelines and handle the DevOps part of it. And we felt that we were not really there. So we did not choose that, for example. Yeah. But that's it. So just want to show a quick example of, like, if I run today yarn serve, let's try it. You see we have some custom tooling on top of this that actually synchronizes some shared assets and etc. Uses NX. I don't know if you can see the terminal on there, but it's actually moving. Otherwise, yeah, sorry. Okay. So you can see we have this on localhost 3000. Can I open? Yes, this should. Go to 3000. And now you're seeing our intranet, but that's going to change. The zoom. And while we have done this migration, we are still in the beginning phase. We used 6 months to do this. So it's, in my opinion, fairly impressive. But we have our plan to, like, look into performance, like how can we do stuff faster, better, and etc. So let's see, what did this say on this building?
You can zoom in a bit.
On the browser?
I think on the terminal as well.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, yeah, it got done now. So you can see this is like the login, and we are on 3000 port, and yeah, we can see all the domains and go to Cepos, Wolf, etc. So we have everything here. And so let's try again, just to. So this is for, like, working with everything that we have, and then if you want to, like, serve Cepos, I'll just serve Cepos. Then it should build. the Sabers part. And yeah, another thing is with the NX monorepo that's, I don't know, maybe a little different, is that they have a single version policy, so they have one package JSON for the entire repo. That's actually quite interesting, I think, but it's helpful. So all of the domains run with the same version. Yeah.
Just wondering how tightly coupled are the domains based on the like shared libraries. Example, if a team builds new functionality, update the shared library, and they want to kind of deploy that to only that part of the business to a whatever. Is it kind of forced, or did you need to work in like legacy support for the other domains?
No, you do not do any like.
Okay.
So if you do some change in the shared, you will impact all of the domains.
Okay.
But we test, like in our CI pipelines, we test, okay, all domains are still running and working and etc. But it's like shared changes are not that common in the end. Like the more mature your product or project becomes, you have less and less changes in the shared. So it will be mostly in the features that you're working. But we have it also, like when we try to build something like a shared component, or like we added also Storybook because NX has this nice way of generating Storybook, and we quickly have a Storybook up and running, and because we needed like an overview of the components. So before you start, like, okay, you need the date picker. Yeah, we have 10 of them. Like that's something that we think about, right? So now I can sign in. As you see, it's exactly the same thing, but now we are only loading the Sabers in the shell, and I can work with that. So as a team that works on one domain, it's like you're still working on a small application actually, and you run your unit tests and end-to-end tests only for your own domain as such. And I can show you here, for example. Another thing, if I go and turn this off, you can see I thought it was like this. So this actually starts the NX dependency graphs, where we actually can get an overview of the entire architecture as I showed before, or the images of before. So if we say like show all projects, group by folder, you can see it's fairly large, and you need to like drill into it, because and we are not even that big. We feel like we're a little bit big, but it can be bigger. So if I go down in here and I say, for example, let's say Wolf, let's try that, group by folder, then I need to like focus on one project here. I don't know if you can see this a little bit unclear on the screen. So you can see that, and you can say, okay, I wanted to see one more example, and it shows a little bit more how things are like connected. But at least we do not have like circular dependencies, and that's great. Another thing that's really powerful with this, I can show an example here. Let's say I'm gonna revert this file here. So if I go in here and say, for example, payment list view or something. So this is in Sabers. I add something, a change, something. So I change this file, and then I can run again NX event graph, but now I use affected. So now we have this fancy color here, and I can say show all projects again, and it actually shows what I affected. And I think there's something weird. What is this? Yeah. Folder. I think it has maybe something based on my old stuff. So yeah, so you have this Odin shell because it actually affected something that's connected to that. If I go down to CBus, I think it was over here. So here you can see actually the CBus things change. So you need to do like end-to-end testing for CBus and etc. So our pipelines are actually a little bit intelligent now because they work on this. Yeah, question?
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you, how do you manage the relationship between microphones? You need to send something. What do you use for shared state?
We're actually not handling shared state as such.
But in case, if you need communication between two microphones,
Yeah. We haven't really had that yet because we have cut the cake as such that the domains are standalone as such. We have somewhere where we have a link from one payment tracing where we just deep link into the other domain. So we have not done anything like that with shared state going across, but there are different ways to do that. You can do it in different ways, but we are not really doing that in our setup actually. Not yet, at least. So any other questions or anything? I can show another example just how nice NX is. So if you want to like let's see this plugin that NX has here, let me stop this. Yeah.
I was curious, like when you had such a big project, and I mean, you also had the pleasure to work with NX. So
yeah, great, cool.
Like a lot of libraries, right? Like connected, and at least it's nicely done with the different modalities. How do you deal when you onboard people? You know, you had seniors at not seniors front end, but seniors at bank. So
yeah, we do when we onboard them, like
when you onboard them, and you had such a like entangled project, so to speak, because it's separate in some sense, but like it's connected because if you change it in the share folder, everything touch everywhere. So I don't know how you handle those scenarios. Like you bring a new junior, now you have to deal with this. So how do you handle bringing someone new on board and try to explain this?
Yeah, we have
a week and not in 3 months. Right?
Yeah, we have great documentation actually. That's something we strive for to have up to date. And it's the new joiner's first task that is updating the documentation if it doesn't work, what he tries. That's how you keep your documentation updated. But we do some nerd shares every 2 weeks, and we just tried something called Code Tour, and that is something we have a task on. You can try to look it up on GitHub. I think Microsoft is the originator of it, or I don't know who really owns it or did it, but you can actually do some code tours with some steps, so you can actually step through the code base, which is really nice for a new joiner at least. But that is the plan.
That's great. I was curious about that.
Yeah.
And do you use?
But we have also what you call it? We will have generators now, like so. So the generators that you will run, ensure that you will not mess up as much as possible. But we also like pull requests, so we do review. So you cannot just go in and just break everything. We have a lot of checks.
It's a really powerful tool, but at the same time can be chaotic in how you use it, because these days, always the fight between Windows and Macintosh, and if you're running Windows, you have WSL, and you have to run this inside, and you create a monster that the garbage collector doesn't work nicely, and your environment is breaking every day. And
exactly.
Yeah.
A good example also, like NX has this tool, so you can actually, if you have some commands that you use every day, you can just add them into the tool really easily. And then they have this nice console, so you don't need to like remember all of the commands as such, because they can become many. And you can say for example, run many, and then you can like choose what you want. It could be like, okay, I want to lint something, and I can just select projects and can just say all. I can also run on all failed, only failed, and I can skip the NX cache if I want, etc. And that's fine. And then I can say execute. NX fires it up and does it for you, which is pretty sweet. And you can see there's a lot of projects. But yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
A few more questions.
Yeah.
This question is not related to NX, but related to monorepo.
Yeah.
How do you deploy it? Like when you deploy it, do you include the dependencies in the bundle, or like the final, let's say in CPO's case, like CPO's you said like what are the dependencies that I want to use?
Yeah. So right now the CPOS shell is only deployed with the CPOS stuff that's being used actually, because it's a small web application in itself as it is. But how we do in production is one React and etc. So we are still building it build time and bundling the stuff etc. Just like normal.
No, my question was that when you have like micro frontends, let's say dropdown has some dependency, any library, let's say tailwind, and you
That
have
is
some tailwind or any
oh yeah.
and some other micro frontend which is using the tailwind, but there is a version clash.
Yeah, but that's what NX actually ensures in this case, is that you have a single version policy. So we use, for example, that was decided a few years back, Andersen. So all of the domains use Andersen. So we try to build like one universe. So the users, like if they're gonna work on different domains, it's still one universe. It's not everything is changed. So we're actually avoiding that stuff. But again, then all of the domains need to be like updated and etc. But you can read up on it, what NX has to say about it. And for me, it's we don't actually think much about it. And NX helps with updating dependencies, and we try to have these dependencies that are like coupled. So for example, React and what you gonna say? I don't know. We also have something React hook form somewhere. We started using Formic now. But some of these like dependencies that are a bit tied together, we try to at least have them updated as much as possible. So we're on the latest React, we're on the latest Andersen actually, or we have a PR up and running with that. And yeah, latest Formic, latest everything. So try to have that up to date. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts about going the monorepo way. It sounded like you almost had like verticals as teams per domain.
Yeah, we actually that's also like what we have, and it made sense, I think, to do it like that with the monorepo. But for me, the power, I think, especially when you have like we heard horror stories about monorepos before, and that, in my opinion, is because a lot of these tools like NX were not in place. I tried monorepo before with like not NX and etc. And I was not scared, but I could just see that there are some things that NX is really good at and helps with. So you can just focus on building value features, not all this tooling. Yeah, Jakob in the air.
So when you're making a change to one of the domains and you want to have that change to production and you're building the stuff, do you then do a delta deploy, or do you actually rebuild everything but trust that NX knows that this is the only thing that changed, so that's the only thing I need to test? And
on CI, we only run affected, but on CD we build everything. So we just ensure that the entire Odin works. So that's what we are doing. Yeah.
Last question.
Yeah.
Just want to ask, what do you do with your shared libraries? Do you import it directly to the microfrontends, or do you package it in NPM and that's the?
Yeah. What we have done now, we have not packaged them. So they are standalone small things, but our plan is not to version them. They're just gonna be latest. So if you mess up with them, you need to fix it for all the domains. But we were like, we're still working and thinking and trying, experimenting, and yeah, see what works. But yeah, good question. That was it, left.
I think that's it. Thank you. I would like to thank William for his presentation. I think it felt more like not a journey with an X and so on, more like cleaning up the wall. Thank you. But then, secondly, I would like to know how many of you are here for the very first time. Oh, nice. Super nice. So, just saying a few words, we're just a group of people passionate about React. So we're trying to build this community around this topic and be React Native, and everything you use under the hood. Secondly, it would be amazing if anyone works on some cool projects and wants to speak about it. They can always reach out to us either via the meetup group or via Twitter. We also have a Twitter account. And then thirdly, if you want to host one of these meetups, again, please feel free to reach out. I mean, you can also reach out to me after the next presentation. All right. Without further ado, again, welcome to everyone new. I hope it's up to standards. But I'll leave it to Jakob, also ex-colleague, presenting a bit about automated versioning. So, give me some hands.
Thank you, Paul. Yes. Automated versioning and changelog generation. First off, I'm Jakob. I'm a software engineer at public.com. And as Paul mentioned, I'm ex-banking circle. So I know all about what William he just told me, or told us. And it was not because the project scared me that I left banking circle. It was just other reasons. Not Paul either. All right. So the motivation behind doing automated versioning came from own projects and own experience around how do you deal with whenever you want to deploy something to production. How do you really figure out what should the version be of your code base? And for non-automated workflows, you usually have to figure out what the next version should be. Does that mean you would have to go through the Git history and figure out, hey, we did so many features, or we only did bug fixes this time, or whatnot? And you have to then manually go in, bump the version, commit the code, all of that manual labor, and you have to manually generate a changelog for the product people and the business side to see what's actually going out in this next release. So let's automate all of that instead of spending time on these tedious tasks. If there's one thing that us developers know is that it takes more than 5 minutes to do, we would rather spend 4 hours creating a script to automate it. So the answer to this is to start using Git like a pro. So stop doing this. Stop having messages that have no context or no meaning to what you're actually doing, because it might have made sense to you when you did that you resolved some GitHub comments, but tomorrow you have no idea what did I actually do. And if you have to go back into history, it's just a mess to figure out what changes came from which place. So instead, you should start doing this. You should use conventional commits, where you have a much more structured commit message, which now provides meaning and context to your changes. So conventional commits, it's a structure of how you write your commit message. So instead of just typing a normal message, you have a type followed by an optional scope, and then a description, a short description describing what the change is doing, and then an optional body if you need a whole paragraph to explain why and how. And then finally some optional footers for referencing issues or marking, breaking changes and all that. So a commit message could look like this. So here I'm noting that this is a commit that is a new feature. It's in the onboarding scope, and I've added a new bank selector. And this bank selector has a longer description of what it does, and it fixes this issue. That could be a Jira issue or Azure DevOps, GitHub issue, whatever, doesn't really matter. And the type could be any of these eight. And usually feature and fixes are the most common ones, and the rest are actually just recommendations of what you can use. But it's mostly the feature and fix that will have an impact on your versioning. Yeah. And then the footers, as I mentioned before, you use it for referencing issues, or you use it for noting that this one has a breaking change, which means that we would probably have to have a major bump in the version. All right, so that's enough about commit messages. Let me just zoom in. Okay. Do you know how to zoom in VS Code? None of that is working.
Maybe your keyboard is broken, okay, in Danish.
Perhaps. It might be. Anyway, the code is not so important, but this is actually just a thank you. A very, very simple code base. It's just a simple React app, and we have a single branch called main. You cannot see it now because it's zoomed in. Thank you. And as a developer, I would then work off of main. I would be developing a new feature, and that could be do the demo. And then let's just do something to represent that change. All right. So I've done a change, and I'm ready to commit those changes. I'm going to show you one of the ways that you can enforce that your team are using conventional commits. If you are using Azure DevOps or GitHub or whatever, you can set up your pipelines to check the commit messages and only allow the format, but you can also use tools locally like Andersen, which is a tool that will help you do these conventional commits without having to type it out and remember the parentheses and the colon and the new lines and yada yada. So here, for instance, I would select, and we have all 8 that I mentioned in the beginning. I would select a new feature. I would select a scope, and This is the landing page. Did the demo. Yeah. True. And then it asks me if there are any breaking changes. No. Does this affect any open issues? Yes. And then I can say closes 10 or whatever. Perfect. And then I can open a pull request. So here I'm just opening a pull request. And then once my co-workers have reviewed the code, QA, I said okay to the changes, I can squash and merge into main. Boom. And then the fun part begins. So here we have a, could you maybe zoom in a bit, again a bit? So here we have a very slim pipeline, which is doing all the prerequisites. It's setting up the environment, installing the dependencies, and then it's running semantic release. And what semantic release does is that it looks at the code, and then it looks at the git log and the commit messages since the previous release. So it analyzes all the messages and computes the next semver. So if we only add bug fixes, it knows that, okay, it's just a fixed version, I need to bump. And if we add features, it knows that it's the minor, and if we added a breaking change, it knows that it's the major. So let's take a look. It already ran. So here you can see the release. Let's zoom in a bit. So this pipeline is running whenever we have a change to main. And you can see that it, in this example, I've set it up so that it's also able to publish your code to a feed. That could be NPM or a local one, doesn't really matter. And then, as I mentioned, it analyzes the commit messages, determines the version, tags the repository, and creates the change log, all for you, and also bundles the code and publish it to NPM. So if we take a look at the repository, you should see that we now have a new tag 1.4 because I created a new feature, and we have a changelog generated, grouping all the features, bug fixes, yada yada, references to the pull request, the commit, and the issue that it's closing. And if you go and take a look at the pull requests, you can also see that it added labels to the pull requests that are released. So we know that the pipelines have run for these pull requests. And if you take a look at the pull request, it also added a nice comment saying that this PR is actually included, and here's a link to the NPM package and the GitHub release. And it would do the same on the issue if I had an issue number 10, but I can show you for this one, for example. Yeah. And you can of course take this a step further and integrate it with your
your Teams or your Slack channels or whatever. We at Public, we have a channel for product also to know that once the features they've been asking for when they are in production. So you could easily integrate that and have it post a message, take the generated changelog, paste it in, and then everybody's happy. Yeah, that was all. Questions?
Yeah, very cool. I'm just wondering, how does it handle like multiple commits and then you squash and merge? Does it come nicely in the changelog as well as with the issue links and stuff like that?
The reason why that I'm squash merging is that I think that a pull request should reflect one deliverable.
Yeah.
So one pull request means one ticket or one feature or one bug fix. And naturally also at Public and also here at Banking Circle, we would not deploy after each pull request came in. We would have a more sophisticated branch setup where we would like have stuff queued up, and then we would have it all released at the same time. So you can choose whether or when you wanna run this release.
Okay. So I guess you will use that first commit as your changelog pretty much, or edit the full kind of description on your squash and merge kind of.
Yeah. What we did here at Banking Circle actually is that we would, when we work locally, the commit messages actually look like the stop doing this image, because no one would read it, because in the end it would get squashed. And and there are also tools for helping you that when you then actually want to merge your commit, that you then in the UI can do that. I know that Azure DevOps have it. I don't know if GitHub has it, but as a step to ensure that you can, in your CI pipelines, when your pull request is open, you can assert on the title and the description of the pull request to ensure that it doesn't go in if it follows the specification. Yeah.
So you did the CLI when you did the commands to go through the step-by-step on how to populate the commit message. Is that a custom tool or?
Yeah, it's a tool called Commitison, and basically what you do is you it's called like that. You would install it globally, and then you, in your project, you then tell it what's the format that you want to use, because conventional commits is not only just the format that I just showed. There are actually a bunch of different formats that you can use that is still machine readable, and the configuration is really simple. And what it does is that you now have this CZ command available that will trigger that.
Question also with that.
Yeah.
You also have a predefined list of scopes, or how do you add the scope?
That list comes default.
The types with the scope, or the optional one in the parentheses?
Not with Commitison as far as I know, but I know that for other tools like CommitLint, there are also ways to configure what the scopes can be.
Okay, but how do you come up with the scope? What is the scope?
The scope would usually be
English name? Is it a
Sorry?
file name or is it the English name? I don't know.
you need to think more of like what's the domain that I'm working in. So for the demo that William just showed, you would have like, okay, so this is the payments part, this is the task list part, this is the app shell or the thing around it, or yeah.
There's another question over there.
Yeah.
You mentioned a change log. Did I just completely miss that? The generation of a change log?
Perhaps. Let me show you. So in this example, the change logs are generated right here with the tags, but you could also have a one markdown file where it just appends basically this part at the top every time, and then commit that and push it to the repository, so you have a changelog markdown file in your project. Yeah. Yeah.
So right now you make a version every time you make a release.
Yes.
Is there a way, if you wanted to kind of bundle multiple pull requests into a version once a week or something to hold off? Or?
Yeah, what you can do is that you can have, so if you have, for instance, a pipeline that is deploying to a UAT or staging environment, whatever, that has like a bunch of features from the previous or the current sprint or whatever, then you can do pre-releases, so it will have the next version, and then you can decide should it be called beta or alpha, or have an integer that's just incrementing, and then that's what gets deployed to the staging environment. And then once you actually deploy or make a real release, it knows that, okay, so 1.4.0 dash alpha 1, 2, 3, 4 yada yada. It takes that part away and knows, okay, now we actually have 1.4.0, and that's the final release, and that's what gets to deploy to production.
Okay, but then you would be working with a main branch, a staging branch, and then work off that staging branch and then do fewer merges to main.
Yeah, I would assume, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's it.
Like, now we are not that lucky. We can have GitHub these fancy bots. So how do we do this in HTML? Like easily?
I know that it is possible. Some of the stuff that you will not get for free is the parts where it commented on the pull requests and the issues and the labels and yada yada. But the rest, you can just run it manually. There are also options to run it locally on your machine if you don't have any pipelines and just want to use this tool to figure out the next version and the changelog and tagging and publishing yada yada. Then there's also an option for running it in that way. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, like when your team decided to choose that tool, like what was the reason? I mean, I have been working with Release Please. I think that is the Google one that is everything for free. It's very intuitive. But I'm curious, like why this tool and not other tool? I mean, it's just.
Yeah, good question. And the answer is that we actually haven't decided yet. We're actually doing it manually. We're actually not following the Git conventions as well. So I'm kind of using this presentation also as an, yeah.
That's super.
Yeah.
I love it. That's great. No?
Yeah.
Did you say that you also enforce this somehow?
Yeah.
How would you do that?
You can. One thing is to use commit lint, which lints the commit messages. So you would have this tool running in your pipeline when your pull requests are running, and you can also enforce it on the developer machines if you want to go that strict that all commits need to pass this validation before they should use Husky to validate the commit
I
messages.
was more interested in if you use it, which one are you using, and how does do you think it works good for the team, and would you rather do it in another?
I think what worked really well at Banking Circle was actually using the tools that came with Azure DevOps, because it made it easy for the developer and didn't put too much. It wasn't too strict when you're just developing and you just want to get this commit and the message isn't really important until I've delivered it. And it's nice to use that tool because it's triggered in the very end of when you actually merge. Then it says, okay, so what's the type? What's the scope? Does it close any issues? You fill it out, okay, and then it goes. So that worked really well. And then in other places, I've actually been used to that. We have been using Commitison locally on our machines, but it can be quite of a headache for some people that they have to follow these rules locally. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Would
sorry.
it be easier for you to have kind of integration between the tracking or ticket system and GitHub? So you would be able to, for instance, we use UTrack and we have integration with GitHub. So when I create a ticket, I have the number of the ticket, and when I merge, it always stays as first commit. And when I go back, or anyone wants to go back and track, they just click on the ticket and they see what's happening. So even if anyone gets missed after a long time, it's still there, and the commit's still kind of here.
Yeah, that's true. I think one of the things is that you are now then dependent on your tracking system and your code base instead of just having the code base itself figure it out. Yeah, that could be another way of figuring it out. I haven't tried that actually.
Let's keep some questions for after. In the interest of time, I think let's give Jakob a few applauses. So we're going to be setting up some food, and now it's the socializing part, which I think we all, as developers, are not very good at it. Thank you.